All right, everybody, it is time to get started. I'm pretty excited about this particular evening. So today, if you have an interest in becoming a wedding officiant, we've brought in Mark Grelier, who is, you know, probably the wedding industry's biggest wedding officiant trainer out there, and I happen to be personally like a fan of Unboring Wedding because I think one of the things that we suffer from in our industry is that we tend to be afraid of moving forward as loan signing agents. And one of the things I think about Unboring Wedding is it kind of gets you over that fear of actually getting up in front of people and doing the job so that you can turn it into a career or a side hustle as a notary. So Mark, I'm going to get right into it with you so that you can get through. I know it's pretty late where you are, and I don't want to keep you up any later than you actually have to be. So I'm going to turn everything over to you. But I did want to give you an introduction because I'm fangirling over here because I love what you've done with your business.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it is amazing to have so many time zones across the spectrum here. I know some people are just kind of getting off of work, and me and my family are getting ready to go to bed. So it's a little bit of everything. So thank you for joining us. It is 8 o'clock here in New Brunswick. I am in Atlantic time on the far east coast of Canada, and just thrilled to be with so many of you. I'm trying to just get myself oriented here on the chat. So, Ronnie, I don't know if you've disappeared, but is there going to be like, is anybody going to be kind of handling the chat, or how do we engage here? Because I want to make sure like there is a presentation aspect, but also I want to field any questions and make time for that. So, what's the best way to do that?
So the chat has been enabled, and
Okay.
Miss Beth will be wielding those chats. You focus on what you need to, and she'll pull up any major important questions, and then we'll give a
Okay.
chance at the end for anybody that wants to ask you a question directly. They'll be able to ask you that question as well.
Okay, great. So, I am really hoping tonight to, Ronnie, when you and I were talking about, what to present, because I've got hours and hours of stuff I could do. You were just talking about how I think notaries are at a time where maybe there's a bit of an economic shift going on, a bit of a downturn, and how can notaries essentially diversify. And that is something that, I mean, I was at a notary conference last year in the state of Montana. I just love talking to notaries about how you can add to your business. It's just it's such an awesome opportunity. So, I deal with a lot of people who get asked as a friend or a relative how to officiate a wedding. They're terrified. They never saw themselves doing this, but they said yes to their loved one, and then they have no idea what they're doing. I don't know if that's happened to anybody here joining us tonight, but I know notaries are. Ronnie, yes. You did survive. You're still here, which is great. But I do know that notaries are in this excellent position to voluntarily take on weddings and actually add it to your services. That friend or relative who gets asked, if they're a doctor or something like that, general practitioner and wedding officiant don't go together, naturally. Whereas with a notary, you are already bringing that authority and have the kind of business where folding weddings in is just absolutely perfect. So, the lay of the land tonight, I do want to, at the end of this, I would love for anybody who feels like they're not sure about weddings, or maybe the wedding thing is not for me. I really want to give you a sense that you can do this. This is right for you. I want you to walk away with a tangible plan that you can have and say, okay, tomorrow morning, if you so desired, you could wake up and say, I am going to officiate weddings. So I'm planning on going maybe 35, 40 minutes of talking or so. And then I would love to answer questions. That is one of my favorite things to do. So tonight, as you can see on the screen, hopefully everybody can see that I'm sharing. Yes, is that a yes? People are seeing the screen, I believe. Bust 3 wedding fears. Thanks for the head nods. And start officiating weddings now. Because I do believe, the notaries that I've known, many notaries in my orbit, and having talked to notaries and going to notary conferences, there is this sense of like, am I worthy? And again, I want you to think about the people who get asked to officiate weddings who are just a friend of a bride and groom or a parent or an aunt or uncle. And I mean, they are in no way qualified. So, notaries, you have everything it takes. And I want to instill that in you, bust some fears tonight, but also give you a plan. So, we're going to kind of tackle three chunks tonight. The first three fears, basically. The first one might be that you don't belong in the wedding industry. The wedding industry is, yes, billions and billions of dollars. There are people who do it as they're lifers. Wedding vendors can be quite intimidating, type A types. And perhaps you feel like, who am I to get involved in that? So stay tuned for that. The second thing I want to really address, the other fear to bust, is you're scared of public speaking. I've got good news for you. That is a non-issue, and I will help you with that as well tonight. And the third is that, well, okay, even if I can be convinced that I can do weddings and the public speaking thing is not an issue, maybe I'll spin my wheels and not get clients, fall flat on my face. I'm a busy notary. I've got too much going on already. How can I spend time maybe making this thing work or maybe not? So I want to show you what I've done and how people who I help in the Unboring Wedding community have launched successful businesses. Again, some of them by accident. They do it once, they love it. Others with a concerted plan. Notaries like yourselves who say, I want to do this and add it to my services. Okay, so that's the lay of the land tonight. That's our roadmap. And like I say, afterwards, I do want to take any and all of your questions. I'm probably going to stop after each section and just kind of gather up any questions about that section. So I don't want to save them all for the end. Stay with me, stay awake, and it won't be too long before we get to the end of a section. If you have a question about that, I'd love to address it as well. Okay, does that sound good? All right, so I don't belong in the wedding industry. There might be some people who think that because it's so intimidating. And I do want to tell you that no one is more qualified to officiate a wedding than a notary. There might be people who are equally qualified, but if you're from the days where, oh, doesn't it have to be a religious person, or doesn't it have to be a lifetime pro? Again, over half of couples, I don't know if you know this stat, in the latest polls or research, over half of couples are choosing a first-time friend or relative to officiate their wedding. And to me, that's nothing for professional wedding officiants to be scared about. I think the reason for that is because your typical professional wedding officiant up to now has been less than exceptional. And I happen to love that stat because I think what it is saying is couples their tolerance for a super dry wham bam ceremony is not what it once was. People want somebody who's engaged, someone who offers an excellent level of service. I mean that in both sense of the words, like a service, like a wedding ceremony, but also in dealing with the couple, in personalizing things for them. And that's again where notaries, I just love that you all have your own business. You're already small business owners. And so folding this in is so perfect. So not only do you have the business know-how as notaries, but also you have kind of the social credibility. I know a lot of notaries who get phone calls and they've never done weddings, they've never even thought about doing it, but people phone you, maybe some of you are familiar with this, and say, hey there, you're a notary, do you do weddings? And if you say no because you don't know how or never thought about it, then it's that thing of you're leaving money on the table. So no one is more qualified to officiate a wedding than a notary. All you need is a three-step process. Again, I want to leave you with this tonight and have you say, okay, I don't want to leave money on the table. The public sees me as capable. Again, if they're phoning you or your colleagues saying we need to get married, as people are more de-churched and unchurched, they don't know where to turn to find a wedding officiant. And a notary is just an obvious choice, okay? So all you need is a three-step process. The first thing is you need to understand the wedding ceremony outline, okay? So some of you may feel like you understand a wedding ceremony. Some of you, maybe this is the intimidating part, but I do want to go through this. This would be like taking mechanics 101 and not talking about the parts of a car. I do want you to feel like, if nothing else, okay, I have it from an authority, a guy who does weddings for a living. This is the 10-part traditional wedding ceremony that essentially I do with 90% of my clients. The other 10% might choose to add a thing here or there, but this is what a wedding ceremony looks like. Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, I don't need to know about full-blown weddings. I would never think to do that. Stay with me, because I really am convinced that what is best for you is to be equipped to know how to do a full-blown luxe wedding ceremony, even if as a notary all you would rather do is signings or even small elopements. That's fine. If you are prepared to do a full ceremony, then those will be a cinch. So basically, if you understand a ceremony, that brings the intimidation factor way down. So here's how I do it, and I think you will learn from this and then be able to feel like, oh, okay, I could do that. A wedding ceremony is nothing to be intimidated about, I assure you. The first thing you want to do in a traditional ceremony is give officiant opening remarks. Now, I always love the surprise that I get from this, because people say, well, wait a minute, I thought in every TV show that I've ever seen or wedding I've been to, the officiant gets up there, says nothing, and everybody else comes in, the processional, and then the officiant says, dearly beloved, blah, blah, blah. And this is the twist that really opens up the room, I would say. Obviously, my company is called Unboring Wedding, and that is me, and that is everybody I train. And so a huge secret, part of my secret sauce, is getting up there and engaging the guests. Now, you don't have to be a ham. I don't believe in telling jokes at weddings. So if you think, okay, I need to be sort of a MC or a real clown here, it's not about that. When the officiant gets up there and speaks to the guests in a down-to-earth, smiling, friendly way, the guests you're already way ahead of many weddings that they've been to. So in the opening remarks, basically I say, good afternoon, everyone. No one says anything back. I say, let's try that again. This is a celebration. Good afternoon, everyone. Nobody knows they're allowed to engage with you, because again, of all the weddings they've been to, they're supposed to sit there obediently and quietly and not make a sound. We don't want that kind of wedding. So again, for assuring you about the kind of officiant you can be, just be yourself. This is again why couples are asking friends and relatives to officiant. They want somebody who's down to earth. They want somebody who'll speak to their guests. You don't have to have this veneer of seriousness like a 16th century vicar or something who's intimidating. People want this. I assure you, that's what couples want. So you just say hi to the guests. You do 3 things in the opening remarks. You introduce yourself, really briefly, give your resume. I just say, my name is Mark. It is my honor to officiate today. And you tell people whether or not they can take photos. The couple will tell you no photos at all, or you may take photos, but be discreet. And then the other thing, of course, you say is to tell people to turn off their phones, their ringers, anything like that. Okay. And then that's it. Really, I just say, having said all that, should we get these 2 hitched today? And everybody shouts back, and you've kind of like gotten this atmosphere going of where people feel like they can connect with you. And like I say, when you start a ceremony like that, it almost doesn't matter what you do for the rest of the time, because people feel so connected to you. I call it getting people on your side. So sometimes you're alone when you do that. Sometimes the couple will decide, did you walk up with one of the marrier's parties? Traditionally a groom, say, and the groomsman. But sometimes you're alone, sometimes you're with them. Sometimes one of the marriers is already up there with you because there's another one coming down the aisle, that kind of thing. So you break the ice with your remarks. Then, of course, is the processional. Everybody comes down the aisle. You don't have to do very much about this. The couple decides who comes in what order. Again, I sit with a couple and plan with them, and they usually have it already in their mind. Oh yeah, we know who's coming in when, and the order that they're standing. This is something that couples really obsess over. If you're intimidated by that, Don't worry, they will decide most of the things there. You just have to prompt them and walk them through visioning that out. Then once everybody's in front of you and they're holding hands, they're holding hands in front of you and their attendants are up there if there are any. And all the kids have sat down and all the animals that have walked in are quiet. Yes, dogs, cats, horses, I've seen it all. Then it's time to give your speech. And you want to prepare for 5 or 10 minutes to say something about the couple. I always, of course, tell the love story. That's the trademark of the Unboring Wedding Academy. And I would recommend personalizing in that way, asking the couple some questions ahead of time, telling their story, making some reflections about love and marriage, always asking them kind of what level that they want to do on that. We'll get more on that. But right now, this is the 30,000-foot view of the ceremony. So we're just going to kind of go through what it looks like. So this is where you talk for 5 to 10 minutes, maybe. Most couples don't want anything more than that. Some couples say 3 minutes is fine, thank you. Then you do the exchange of vows. There's 3 styles of vows. The couple can write and read their own. That's very popular. Or they can repeat after you, line by line by line. That's where the officiant says, do you? Or it's repeat after me, not a question. So you're saying it as a statement. So I, Sam, take you, Abby. I, Sam, take you, Abby. And they go line by line. The 3rd style is a big long question, and some couples choose that because all they want to say in the whole ceremony is 2 words, I do. So this is where you would say, do you, Abby, take, etc., 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 and all they have to do is say I do and take their turns. Okay, see, it's pretty easy so far. After the vows, then typically we do the exchange of rings. This will be planned ahead of time. Again, who has the rings? All you have to do is say it is time to exchange rings. A lot of officiants ask me when they're new, how flowery do I have to get? How much transitional statements and big? I don't do any of that in my ceremonies. I just say the couple will now exchange vows and make promises. The couple will now exchange rings as a symbol. So you don't have to speak Shakespearean sonnets to be a wedding officiant either. Just very plainly say what we're doing now and then move on into it. So after they exchange rings, take their turns doing that. Then you pronounce the couple married. You just say, I print it by the state, by the authority given me by the state, that kind of stuff. I assume you'll check the legal stuff as a notary. You'll make sure you're all legal. You pronounce them married. Sometimes you have to say certain words by the authority given by the state of Arizona, that kind of thing. And then, of course, that's where they kiss. You get out of the way so you're not photobombing that shot. Now, the signing of the license in Canada, we do this right in the ceremony. I know a lot of Americans say, I've never seen that in my life. I know, I'm hoping to single-handedly export this tradition to the US and then take all the credit when 5 years from now it's in every wedding. And I say this because, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of members of Unboring Wedding hear this and they're like, oh, it's really cool. But, and in Canada, like I say, for some reason, we've always done it right in the ceremony. So I always tell the couple, after you kiss and everybody's cheered, I say to everybody, we're going to go sign the papers. We'll be right back. There's usually a little table there. They go over. I ask the couple to choose a really fun song, think signed, sealed, delivered, something like that. Everybody's kind of chair dancing. We're not done. The photographer gets to take the pictures. Everybody's get to see it happen. The wedding parties are chit-chatting. It's not total chaos, but it's not serious and whispery and tense either. So I love this kind of like almost done interlude thing. And then we come back to the center, and that is for the officiant closing remarks. So typically they're facing their guests now, loads of energy in the room. And then I just give quick closing remarks. You'll just want to ask the couple, what do I say here? Typically 2 things. You're going to tell the guests what the couple are doing. They're usually leaving for photos or something, because just you want everybody to know where they are. And then you tell the guests what they're doing, something like it's cocktail hour, hey, head to the terrace for some drinks, enjoy the grounds, there's some lawn games, and the reception is set to begin at 6 o'clock. Again, you're asking your couple exactly what to say there. Thank everybody for coming. And then ask everybody if they're ready to celebrate. And then everybody will scream back at you and cheer. At this moment, again, you can get the sense it's just building to the grand finale, which is your presentation of the couple. You say, stand with us now, friends and relatives. It is my distinct honor to present to you for the very first time. and then you say Mr. and Mr. last name, or first names only as husband and wife, whatever they chose to have as the last words of the ceremony. These are the last words you want to say, because then a big song comes on. You know, I try to, I've never had a wedding with pyrotechnics, but you want to imagine that it's like boom, like ending a concert. They head up the aisle. That's the recessional number 10, and everybody files out. Okay. So that, like I say, 90% of the ceremonies I do look exactly like that. People pay me huge money and book me solid 2 years in advance for number 3, the officiant speech, where I tell their story. But I also like to think that a huge reason for this is that direct engagement with the guests. You are down to earth. You're being yourself. You're not distant and intimidating. Those days are gone. Couples don't want that anymore. They just want somebody who's down to earth. Okay. So that's the first plan you need. The second you need is a planning meeting. So now that you've wrapped your head around a 10-part wedding ceremony, you're like, okay, I could do that. When you get a couple, you want to have a plan for planning that with them. Now, the reason why I put the ceremony first is, in terms of this presentation, is I want you to be able to be their guide. You do not have to invent things whole cloth as a wedding officiant. So again, if you're intimidated, I don't know all the things. You don't need to do that. You sit down, every couple who I do a wedding with, you want to conduct a ceremony planning meeting with them and walk them through the parts. So you schedule it 4 to 6 weeks before the wedding. Sometimes it's tighter, and I get that. A wedding couple's gonna find you with 3 weeks to go. Great, you're like, good, let's have the wedding planning session like tomorrow. So it's doable, but essentially you want to be able to sit down with them. You don't want it so far away that they have no idea, and you don't want it so close that they're panicked at the decisions they have to make when you walk them through the 10 parts. So that is the content. You sit down with them. Sometimes it's over Zoom or something like that, but I try to have them meet me at the coffee shop of my choice. And I know as notaries, you guys are ninjas at this. You say, meet me at the Dunkin' Donuts on the corner to sign your papers or whatever. You don't want to be driving all over the city. So have them meet you for this planning session. I call it the wedding workshop. They meet me at the coffee shop of my choice right near my house here. And I just walk them through the 10-part outline that I just went through with you. All the choices about the processional, how they're going to say their vows, and who has the rings, and what do you say in the closing, what do you say in the opening. They are the ones feeding you all this stuff. Of course, you're prompting them, and they might say, well, I've never thought of that. But that's okay. That's your job, and it's their job to choose. You don't need to know 1,000 ways to do a thing. You work on it together. It just takes an hour, because if there's anything they don't know, you basically put a pin in it and say, okay, well, I'm going to send you your script, and it's not going to be, you're going to have a TBD, to be determined there, and you have a few weeks to hash it out. As an officiant, I want to keep reiterating this. You don't need to be an expert on all the things. They need to be making a lot of choices too, because they are the boss and it's their ceremony. You're there to guide them and coach them along. You only have to be 3 or 4 steps ahead of them in terms of your knowledge of how a ceremony will go, but you would be amazed at how many things, couples are watching TikTok and stuff. They know what they want. All you have to do is kind of lead them into that. So after you walk through the 10 parts, you want to add 3 more questions to them, because they might want to add some things. So remember how I said 90% of my couples do the 10 parts, but the other 10 add some things? That's because I asked them these questions. Do you want to add a reading? Do you want Aunt Hazel to come up and read a poem or something? Do you want somebody else to participate? Do you want grandma to come up and say a prayer or something like that? So you definitely want to ask them if somebody else should or needs to, or they want to participate in the ceremony. And so the second thing they might want to add is something from a faith tradition. Maybe somebody wants to come up and lead Eucharist, or, there's some other tradition. Typically, couples are not going to be super religious if they're asking a notary or a professional wedding officiant like you or I to do it. If they were super religious, they'd have their imam or a priest or something. So you're not going to get a lot of super high intense stuff like that. But sometimes there's some ethnic traditions like the breaking of the glass, or hand fasting, or, I married a Filipino couple where they did the coin exchange and attaching her veil to him, and I had no idea what that was. And I just said, great, we'll do that. I'm going to go Google it. And they didn't mind that at all. You can find stuff on the internet. You can ask them for their help. A couple once said, we want a quake. And I said, I don't even know how to spell that to Google it. Can you help me out? And it's, yeah. They said it's a bowl with two handles. It's a Scottish thing. And great. So you don't have to fake it till you make it. There's loads of different weird, interesting Unity rituals out there. That's number 3 that they might want to add. And you just say, great, I will figure that out. If you have any information on that for me, please get that to me. It's very collaborative. You don't need to be worried or be the expert. And the last thing is, in terms of a plan, is the ceremony rehearsal. There's a bit of a zeitgeist out there of some professional officiants saying, who wants a rehearsal? Skip the rehearsal. And I always say, I insist on a rehearsal, always. Every weekend I officiate a wedding and I say, I want to rehearse this. I want to meet your people. I want to have fun with them. And I want everyone to be more comfortable. So especially if you're new, again, I don't like saying especially if you're new, because that gives you the impression that you can skip the rehearsal if you're experienced. I refuse to. But especially if you're new, you should be doing a rehearsal, and they're super fun and tight. So what do? You run a fun, tight 3-part rehearsal. Typically, this happens the night before, and it can be held anywhere. Sometimes you'll hear, oh, well, the venue isn't, we can't get into the venue on Friday night because they're booked with something else. Great, let's meet at a park. I've done rehearsals in condo hallways, anywhere that there's space. You get everybody together and you walk it through. Now, here's a rehearsal should take 40 minutes tops, and you run it in 3 parts, okay? So here's a rehearsal plan. First, you do a talk through. So what does that look like? At start time, I've talked to the couple. We've made sure that the script is all in order. And then you say, come on, everybody. Okay. Hey, everybody, gather around. My name is Mark. I'm the officiant. We're going to rehearse tonight. And you tell them this is only going to take 35 to 40 minutes. And this is what we're going to, so this is a bit meta because I'm telling you now what you're going to tell them. But you're also going to learn at the same time, as though you're in that huddle, how to run a rehearsal, okay? Because I want everyone to know what's happening tonight and when they're getting out of here. So you do a talk through. Right now you say, we're going to practice tonight in 3 parts. Essentially, we're going to talk it through. That's this part. Then we're going to walk it through. We're going to go to the back. We're going to practice walking in. We're going to iron out the kinks, who's walking, who's standing, the speed and the symmetry and the shoulders and the, you just work it all out. And then you say, then that's going to be a sloppy hot mess. Don't worry. It's going to take about 20 minutes of ironing all that out. Then we're going to go to the back and we're going to do it again in like 5 minutes. And it's going to be super awesome because you know what you're doing now. You know your cues, you know where you're standing, all that good stuff. And you don't practice any of the words you're going to say as an officiant. You got to remember the rehearsal is about the moving parts and the cues, okay? So you're practicing any things like the ring exchange, or if there's a bride and she comes to the front and stops and her partner steps forward and shakes hands with dad, say, like, you want to iron out and practice any of those moving parts. You're not getting bogged down in details. You're not practicing your speech or any long words. You're just ironing out the kinks, keeping it super high energy and fun and relevant to everybody. And then you're out of there. So that is the plan for a rehearsal. I know a lot of people feel like I'm fine getting behind the screen and behind my computer writing a script, and maybe even being I can stand there and officiate a wedding because it's all controlled. The rehearsal scares people. And here's what I'm saying again: be yourself. Down to earth. You walk in with a plan, this 3-part plan, and you show that you know what you're doing, and everyone will listen again because you promised we're out of here in 40 minutes if you behave and if you follow this plan, and people will snap to attention. It'll be a great time. I love meeting everybody the night before the wedding, connecting with everybody and showing them that I'm competent. And so can you, because you have the script in your hands, which is a segue to the next part. But the bonus here I want to say is you can do 3 kinds of wedding services as we kind of hinted at. You can do quick signings, obviously. You can do elopements. That's like 8, 9, 10 people under a tree, maybe something smaller. Maybe there's not even any seats. Or you can do a lux ceremony where it's everything we just described. So as I said at the beginning of this section, if you I mean, now that we've been walked through that, if you are ready for a Lux ceremony, the kind of process that I just brought you through, then an elopement will be super simple, and a signing especially as well. So, you can decide how you want to scale up as a notary, but if you're ready for those full-blown ceremonies, I always say that's where the money is. People want that kind of performance from a great down-to-earth officiant, and they'll be willing to pay for it. So, as I said, no one is more qualified to officiate weddings than a notary. All you needed was a process. The ceremony process, the meeting process, and the rehearsal process are three really important processes that hopefully now that you've kind of wrapped your head around that, you say, no, you're right. You're right, Mark. I can do this, okay? So hopefully you realize you do belong. No one's more qualified than you. I want to get to the next one. Any quick questions before we move on?
You've got a couple of them. One from Christopher Schaefer.
Okay.
He wants to know if you have a video of one of your opening remarks so he can get an idea of how you do that.
Oh, I don't have a video publicly on the internet. I do for members of Unboring Wedding Academy. So I have some full ceremony videos in the academy, but not publicly. There's all kinds of copyright stuff. I had to ask the videographer and the couple, and people typically don't want that out on the internet. So I hear you. So the answer is no, unless you come inside Unboring Wedding Academy. But really it's the way I'm speaking to you right now is the way that I would present that. Good afternoon, everyone. Come on, this is a celebration. Let's try that again. Good afternoon. Are you ready for Sam and Abby to get married? You're just smiling. You're talking the way you would. And so it is that, just like I said, connecting with them and talking to them directly puts you way ahead of most officiants, and that connection with you really creates a lot of positive regard for the ceremony going forward. That was a good question.
And one from Andrea. She says, do you just do the ceremony? I'm not sure what state she's in. She said she tried to register with the county, but they're full. So I don't know what that means. So is that a two-part process? Are you officiating and able to sign the license, or could those be separate?
Yeah, I'm not privy to a lot of the legal stuff because I have members all over the world. It's very different in the UK or Australia to certain states. I would say a workaround for notaries in the US is Universal Life Church or America Marriage Ministries. You can become an ordained online minister, and I'm using air quotes, but not in a pejorative sense. Couples don't care how you're legal, they just care that you're legal. So I think most states except Virginia or something like that, just from what I've heard, will recognize these ordinations like Universal Life Church, American Marriage Ministries. So if you go through them and get your online ordination license, then you can say as a notary, I'm legal. Again, I went to Montana last year because Montana notaries can now legally sign. But so this is to the point of, are you able to sign the papers as a notary? Maybe not, but if you have that minister's license, then you can. So yes, sometimes the ceremony is legal, sometimes it's not. Again, I would say I think people are phoning notaries and asking, can you officiate a wedding? And as a note, if with your notary hat on, you might say, no, notaries are not legal in my state. But you could say yes, because you wouldn't necessarily even have to tell them. I'm not saying hide it or anything, but couples don't know. New Brunswick couple has asked me, how are you legal? I am. And I'm able to register their marriage. And so that's something that you'll want to consider.
And then one big all-time question, the Unboring Wedding Academy. Get into your program, your training, is the cost.
Well, I will have a special offer at the end of this presentation tonight, and a special discount code that's good for today. So stay tuned for that at the end. I didn't want to be, hawking anything here. I really want to give you like I said, content with teeth here. But Unboring Wedding Academy, yes, I'll have a special offer for you at the end of this presentation. Thanks for asking.
And Mark, I just wanted to say something about the first segment, if that's okay, because
Yeah.
it's not a question, but as you were talking, it really dawned onto me. In my experience in performing weddings, you talked about guiding them through, and I kind of learned all of that stuff the hard way before I kind of started following you and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And what I realized was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there were really two types of people that I worked with. There were people who were getting married for the very first time that really didn't know, and they really turned to a minister or officiant to kind of help them as one component, just like they turned to caterers. And then there were the couples that have done this before, and really they maybe have gotten through a huge wedding before, but now they're just doing their second marriage or their third, and they just want a backyard, very relaxed, wedding. And those were the three types of customers in the 10 years that I've been doing this that I have seen, where they really at any level or any way that reason that they came, they really just need you to do that part and walk them through it. And what I love is, like, you have this 10-step plan to kind of walk them through it. But they really, the first timers, they need the most help. They need your guidance. And that really does relate to our industry as notaries, because a lot of times signers have not bought a house before. They've not, or this is their first time refinancing after they bought a house. And we take that position to walk them through it. So I agree with you that this is just a really good border, to the notary industry in a lot of ways. And then the last thing I wanted to let you know, while you were talking, we have now added, for anybody that is with the Unboring Wedding Academy, on Notary Stars under the wedding officiating section, you're able to tick a box now that says, I was trained by the Unboring Wedding Academy, the best, wedding officiant training company. So you can now tick that box and let your customers know that are looking at your listings that you have been trained by one of the best, trainers in the country. So I just wanted to let you know we added that to the website today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so now let's get into the public speaking fears. I get that one a lot. I hear that one a lot. And I want to assure you, here you go. Great news. Officiating is not public speaking. And I know people are really surprised to hear that, but wedding officiating is reading. And that is one of the best things about it. It allows you to do a lot of weddings. First of all, you don't have time to rehearse. I think people think about standing in front of people and they think of TED Talks, or even if you do a work conference. I speak at Wedding MBA in Las Vegas, the biggest wedding conference in the world. It would be totally uncool for me to stand there with a paper and read my speech. But with wedding officiating, you are expected to do that. And so you really, all 90% of the work, I say, happens ahead of time, because once your script is done, you stand there, you connect, you're delivering, but it's reading well. Okay, that is really, there are three ingredients to reading your script well. Officiating a wedding is reading, but it is reading well. Okay, so the first thing, it's all about formatting your script. It's all about formatting your script in a way that you can connect with the people out there and with your couple. No one wants to see you behind your binder the whole time. Okay, so we don't want to do that. We're avoiding that. We want to be able to hold it very comfortably, look up, look around. If you go to unboringwedding.com, you'll see pictures of me officiating, and I am looking up, looking down, looking, engaging, but I'm reading every single word. I get asked a lot, I'm coaching calls and things like that. Mark, how much of this do I have to memorize? Zero. Now, with some experience, you will be able to deliver opening remarks, for example, because you've said it 200 times without reading the script. But even if you do, it's you'll see lots of officiants who do that. And again, it's about connecting and being clear. So format your script well. Here's 3 keys to doing that, okay? The first is really clear headings. So we just went through outlining the 10 parts. You want to do that and add any other elements your couple chose to add, say like a prayer or a hand fasting. Just put big, bold, clear headings in your script. That's step 1. You basically start outlining it. So you have all the information, remember, from the planning session. You met with your couple. I don't know how you took the notes. I use a spreadsheet. Maybe you were using a Moleskin or a notepad, or maybe you were writing it on a napkin. Hopefully you're a bit more prepared than that. But you come out of that meeting with all the information you need for the 10 parts and anything they wanted to add. So then after you make your headings, you just start filling in all the details that you brainstormed and worked through together. I really do want to emphasize you're only creating one script during the process. So don't create like a scratch script and then make another one that it's coming together now, then another one that you'll format better. You want to basically have the same script going from the get-go. I use a Google Doc 14-point Arial font, nice and big, and I start filling in the details. The great news is when you're a professional, you can have like a master script copy and just start changing the couple's names. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. It's really nice that way. But get a kind of a template for yourself, your very first wedding, something you're really comfortable with, and you're going to want to just build that out as you go, but you're not going to keep making different iterations of that. So once your headings are nice and clear and you've gone through that all in detail, the other really important thing as you build it out is a wedding script is words that you're going to say, spoken words and actions. Okay, here's a little mantra that I have. A wedding script with only the talking parts is only half done. I see way too many of that with emergency coaching clients who just call me and say, can I get on the phone tomorrow? I have like a coaching package. They send me their script and it's just the words they're going to say. Well, that doesn't make any sense because a wedding ceremony has so many moving parts, people coming in and standing and cues and things like that. So write everything you'll say. Good. Yes, I know, as we're always conscious and worried about that part. Get that down. But write every moving part and every moving person and or animal and baby in a wagon and whatever else that happens. Put it all down on the script. Okay. So consider using two colors. I do this. Say, black for spoken words and blue for any people moving around or stage directions. And basically what this means is when you've got your 10 parts, you're going to say like, okay, now we're at the ring exchange, say. What has to happen? I'm going to say they will now exchange rings, but now what? What happens next? And that's the level of thinking you want to do for your script. And again, do you see how once you do this for your first wedding, second wedding, third wedding, you can basically take that first script you did, because it's going to be the same for most weddings. There's going to be maybe a couple of little changes, but again, coming back to that wedding ring exchange example, you will say, best man Jerry steps forward and gives Abby's ring to Sam. Okay, then the next point, Sam puts the ring on Abby's finger. Okay, the next point. It's that level of detail that allows you to understand everything that's happening for the rehearsal. But another added bonus is I always, I assure the couple, and they love hearing this, although I don't like bringing it up, is I could get hit by a bus, 2 days before the wedding, and they have their script, and it's so detailed that anybody could just step in and fill in for me. And trust me, the officiant nightmare, when you're a student, you have that nightmare that you wake up and you're not ready for a test. The recurring officiant nightmare is that you can't make it to a wedding, and you let everybody down. And a huge factor that helps with that is knowing that your couple has a script that's so detailed that if you did get really sick the day of the wedding, yes, of course you refund them, but you're not leaving them high and dry. They have the full script with all the detail, and it's so clear that basically they can hand it to their uncle 10 minutes before and they could get through it, that kind of thing. That's how detailed it is. So I'm saying that mostly just give you an idea of the level of detail. Every little action is there on the page, okay? So here's an example. This is a screenshot. Hopefully you can see the screen of a script from my wedding. And so this is a real wedding that I did. So this would be right after the processional. The music fades low when Jen and Dad reach the front row. Mark says, Peter, do you stand here in support of Jen's marriage to Brad today? Peter says, I do. Now look at the level of detail. Music fades up again. I'm going to show the DJ that. Brad, the groom, steps forward to receive Jen. Handshakes, hugs, exchange with parents. They decided that. We want to get both parents. Okay, then Jen and Brad come the rest of the way to Mark. Jen gives her flowers to Cheryl. Jen and Brad face each other. Again, you might be thinking, well, that's pretty overwhelming, but you're doing that with them in the planning session, and you're probably just taking notes. But when you come home, just think everything through, put yourself there and say what has to happen next. And so your whole script will look like this. Music fades out. The DJ loves to see that. I say, please be seated. Peter, the dad, that's then when he takes his seat. Do you see how this kind of level of detail helps you run a rehearsal totally comfortably as well? You basically just got to look down, say, what does my script say we got to do at this point, and walk through it that way. You also want lots of white space. You notice that, but this is really relevant to your speech part. Remember the third part of the ceremony, the officiant speech? The key to reading well is finding your place quickly and easily. Now, for me, an Unboring Wedding, I'm telling the kind of love story that's making people laugh and people cry and people comment. And so I want to engage that. When somebody makes a comment, a cheeky comment, or laughs really hard, I want to look up and enjoy the moment with them. So how do I do that in the speech part? Again, those quick emergency consults I see people, they've just written it in 8-point font, and it's huge blocks of text, single spaced. You know, you wouldn't even submit a college essay that way. I would say definitely don't stand on a stage and try to present from that kind of script. So avoid big blocks. Well, what do you do instead? Consider breaking up the line so it looks more like a poem, like stanzas of a poem, and run your thumb down the page. This is my secret to being able to do that, where as I'm reading, my thumb is just really discreetly slipping down the page of my binder. And so if something happens, I look up, I look down, people are laughing, I look around, but my thumb is literally pointing to the last line that I said, and I can look right down and know where I am. I want to show you what that looks like. So here is a big block of, it's not a big block actually, but it is one of the full pages of a love story. This is a real wedding I did, of course. So I'm reading this, like, likewise for Jasmine, the word on the street about this Chris is that he's a total gentleman with a heart of gold. And so somebody might laugh there. And I look up and my thumb is pointing at gold, and I know the next line, I look back down. So when Chris sidles up to the bar one day to order a drink, expectations are heightened and positive hearsay is confirmed, and there's a spark. So see how I'm not going to have any problems finding my place. My thumb's moving down the page, almost like a moving tab, and I can comfortably engage. So this is what I was saying about it is not public speaking in the sense that you might be familiar with. It is reading. The bonus here that I want to say is share this ceremony script with your couple when it's done. Now, I never show the story to the couple. So if you start feeling proficient and confident, and of course, nobody who takes my course shows the story because they know it's going to absolutely just bring the house down. So that's a really fun surprise. But you want to share the rest. So I always have a couple copy of the script that I share with them the second I'm done it, because I want them to read it, sign off on it. If I missed anything, hey, let me know. If some of the wording is not right, let me know. They're the boss. Again, it's their ceremony, and I want them to agree and sign off on every single word I'm going to say, how I present them, how I refer to them, all that kind of thing. Now I write the story separately, and the day before the ceremony, after the rehearsal actually, because some changes might happen, I take that couple script, make a copy of it, and then I plug the story in, and that's my master copy. So you can decide whether or not you want to reserve your story, just so that it's fun, a nice surprise for them. If you're going to kind of play it more straight up the middle in terms of your reflection about love or marriage or commitment, maybe you want them to see it and sign off on it, because we never want to surprise our couple in the negative sense. We never want them to say, well, I didn't expect that. Because reviews, of course, are going to be huge to getting more and more business. And so we want couples to leave great reviews, which means we want to do really well every time. Okay, so share it with them. You'll feel better, they'll feel better. And that's part of a really well formatted script. So officiating, again, is not public speaking, it's reading. So just take that concern off the table when you walk up there on the wedding day at ceremony start time and turn around. The only job left to do is read this incredible thing that you've written. Okay, so 90% of the work is done. All right, so with that, we just got one more. We are running a little longer than I told you, so sorry for lying. My pants are on fire. One more section, the fear that you won't get clients. But let's pause there. Any questions up to this point?
We have some conversation happening, and Ms. Beth, I don't mean to trip over you, but
Okay.
I've actually received emails that I've been answering while we're doing this.
Okay.
We also have this going in the chat, and it seems to be a theme. So what I want to explain to everybody watching is, first of all, we keep getting on the question of, can a notary do this in a particular state? And this is what I'm going to say is, first of all, if you're not able to do it as a notary in your state, that doesn't mean that you can't do it, because a lot of states will allow you to become an ordained minister online, which is very easy. You can do it in less than 30 minutes at the Universal Church of Life. I've got my credentials hanging up back there in the background. You guys have seen that for years now. If you're not able to do it as a notary, you don't have to be a notary to be an ordained minister. In the Universal Church of Life, you basically go in and agree that you're going to accept all walks of faith, and that you believe that there is a supreme being, and boom, you're done. They give you your certificate. It's a very low cost. And then you can start your journey. So if your Secretary of State tells you that you can't you can't officiate a wedding because you're a notary, then you need to find out, can an ordained minister do it? And I believe in most states you can. But that is up to you to look first at your Secretary of State's office, and then at your individual state to see about the wedding. Am I correct, Mr. Mark?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Like I say, most people I know, again, the wham bam first time friends or relatives or notaries, you just become an online ordained minister. Like American Marriage Ministries, for example, their ministry is marrying people. So you can just basically get a ministerial license to marry, and most states will recognize that. I did see, I was kind of scanning the chat while you were talking there. Somebody asked I'd be nervous, Annie, I'd be nervous to reserve the story and surprise the couple. What is the benefit of this? So if you're nervous, then don't do it. The benefit, I love every couple when we're lined up at the back, they typically say to me, I can't wait to get out there and hear our story. When you ask them the questions to get the information to write their story, I always tell the couple, I'm not making stuff up about you. You know how it goes. And you're not obviously making crass jokes or anything like that. You're just kind of telling how they met and the proposal and that kind of thing, the first date. I teach the exact formula for this in Unboring Wedding Academy. And so couples know what you asked, and they can't wait to hear it and experience the high points, the funny points, the hijinks, the maybe slightly embarrassing first date or proposal moments. It's just so much fun. People love, hear, the whole thing is about them. They're standing there, and it's just fun for them to hear it for the first time. There's this voyeuristic effect of you're talking about them to the guests. The whole time you're talking to the guests about Sam and Abby, and they're just basking in the glow of how sweet and romantic and hilarious and beautiful it was from the moment they met to getting there on the wedding day. So that's the benefit is, like I say, no couple has asked me to see it before because they intrinsically know it's going to be so fun to experience that with my guests as well. Okay, so let's move on to you're worried you won't get clients. I want to show you the strategies that I started with.
Right before you go into that, Mr. Mark, I just want to let everybody know I posted a link in the chat, and I'm posting it again. It is from the Universal Church of Life, and it is the wedding laws by state. Very easy to go in and click that map and change it to your state, so you can tell by the end of this presentation if you're able to become a wedding officiant in your state.
Yep. And like I said, American Marriage Ministries is also doing a lot of work on that, amm.com or org or something like that. All right, the last one. You're worried you won't get clients. With time, your clients will start flowing in from multiple places, but I don't want to just that to be kind of a pie in the sky platitude. Specifically, there are 3 sources in the wedding industry for finding clients. This is what's really great. In the wedding industry, there are going to be 3 pipelines. So as a notary, you know where you get your clients, you know where they're coming from. Hopefully, once you figure that out, you're leaning into it even harder. Do what's already working, right? Well, for any wedding professional, there's 3 sources. Here they are. The first are wedding vendors. You're going to be a wedding vendor, a notary who does weddings, but wedding vendors, these are in no particular order, by the way. So you kind of take your pick, choose your own adventure, but wedding vendors are the greatest. And I don't mean like in terms of number 1 ranking, although for me, it's true. So I think the more established, the greatest source of referring couples to you. So, for example, wedding planners, couples come to a wedding planner and say, help us find a venue, help us find an officiant, help us find a DJ, a florist. They go to their venue, they say, help us find a florist, a DJ, an officiant. And so wedding vendors, especially other officiants, when they are booked, for me, I'm booked 2 years solid. So every time a couple asks me, can you do our wedding? And I say no. Jen, my operations manager, says, no, Mark is booked, but we recommend. And so we send them to some other local officiants who I think are great. So that is an example of what can happen to you is you think, well, I'm the bottom of the heap, I'm new. There's a way to make sure that wedding vendors become a really good source for you. So I'd say research the top wedding vendors in your area, okay? And reach out to them and ask them for 30 minutes of their time. I know this might seem like, oh, cold calling. I did this in Toronto when I was starting out. Then we moved to New Brunswick and I was persona non grata again. I wanted to move by the sea and kind of live that rural New Englandy, but Canada kind of life. And I had to start over. And I did this again. I just picked up the phone and started saying, hey, wedding venue owner Sarah. Hey, wedding planner Caitlin. Can we meet at such and such? I'll buy you a drink, just 30 minutes. I'd love to. And you're kind of doing research. Again, you're not faking. You really are checking, asking them what weddings are like in the area, what kind of work they do, what's their best work, so you're going to take the posture of learning, have these coffees and just say, I want to learn about what's going on in your world, what weddings are like, what's your favorite venue in this area, who are some, and you're not coming in this kind of form of supplication, okay? So this is really the strategy is your impulse is going to be to reach out to these people and say, please refer me, please refer me, please refer me. And you're doing the opposite. What you're actually doing is saying, I want to get to know you a little bit and your work so that I can refer you to my clients. And when you say that, and it is true, if you meet with a DJ and they're really great and you look at their online reviews, you're like, okay, well, I met DJ Steve. We had a quick coffee. I think he's really great. Then when you get couples, you're going to say, oh, DJ Steve for sure. Okay. That's literally a DJ that I recommend to every couple who sits down with me in our initial chemistry check when they're considering booking me. Okay. So that's an example of how you want to just meet with as many vendors as you can. I know this is time consuming, but go to venues, hotels or barn, whatever the venues are. You just start researching weddings in your area and just send an email or phone call, message them and just say, I'm getting into officiating and I would love 30 minutes of your time to ask you about weddings. When you take a posture of wanting to learn from them, hear their story and get to know about their expertise, and then you offer to refer them, you just say, great, can I have your card basically when you leave that meeting? They are going to remember that. They're not going to think highly of you if you meet with them and just say, please refer me, please refer me. It should be the opposite. Consider it a bit of like a research phase, but the amount of networking you're going to do in the positive regard you build up from meeting with somebody and saying, talk about yourself to me, there's no substitute for that. And right away, you're going to get to the top of their list of, you're going to be rattling around in their mind when they get asked. The second thing is cold searches. So couples are turning to the internet when they get engaged, and they're typing in wedding officiant in my area, whatever the area is. So you want to get found where couples are looking. There's a few places where you can do that. Google My Business is absolutely crucial. And as a notary, hopefully, probably, you already have a Google My Business listing. You might want to consider a totally separate one for officiating. So if your name is, I don't know, Quick Sign Notary, maybe you want to do Quick Sign Officiant, or your name as officiant. Maybe you want to go completely different brand, but consider a separate Google My Business listing, because Google My Business does go by keywords, right? So your notary signing thing is not going to come up when somebody is looking for whatever, a quick efficient wedding officiant, that kind of thing. So you're going to want a listing there. Consider a separate website for your weddings. A lot of Unboring Wedding Academy members are notaries, like I said, but they do get a website for their weddings. Now, on their notary site, they do say, I do weddings. They have a simple page, but it might, click here to go to the totally separate wedding website. So consider that as you grow. You're going to get more photos, more reviews of you in action, and then you'll have, you'll build out your Google My Business. But as your wedding vendors start to refer you, and you chase down photographers for pictures, and you ask your couples for reviews, you start plugging those into a website, your Google My Business listing, and that snowballs. And the third thing is local wedding listings. There's things like Wedding Wire or Thumbtack. Again, there's mixed reviews on these things, but there might be some sort of board near you in your local area for wedding vendors that you might want to jump on. Sometimes there's paid listings, sometimes there's free listings, but you definitely want to get out there where couples are looking. So maybe for this phase of research, you pose as a couple in terms of your research. I don't mean you have to get dressed up or anything. You just sit in your computer and basically say, if I were getting married, what would I type in? See what comes up. Pretend you're looking for an officiant, and whatever comes up first, that's where you want to be. Okay, and the third pipeline you want to get flowing, you got your vendors who start referring to you as you have more coffees. Then you have your cold searches. You're starting to optimize stuff online. Your network. A lot of people say, well, I'm ready to go. How do I start? Okay. and I always say, share the word broadly on your socials with your family. The second people hear that you are trained, you're into it, you're good to go, you're legal. Well, people are getting married all the time. You would not believe it. So the people you know are going to be your most ready supply of referrals and help you get there perhaps first. So start spreading the word with people you know, like I said, family, friends, but there's also some more interpersonal steps you can take. Again, hopefully you're seeing this theme of being proactive. The first thing I would recommend is something like your local chamber of commerce, whether you're in a big city or a small town. Usually there are local chapters for business people. When I moved to New Brunswick, local chamber of commerce, bang, got in, started going to meetings, going to those little meet and greet networking Thursday afternoon things. And of course, hey, what's your name? Oh, what do you do? I'm a wedding officiant. Oh, great. I was booked solid in no time. Again, starting over because I joined my chamber and started interfacing with people and just saying, I'm a wedding officiant. You start doing that, word will spread. Oh, I met somebody at a thing. Somebody in our chamber is a wedding officiant. That goes a really long way. The second thing is local wedding shows. I know some vendors, so I always recommend to go and have a little table with some cards, talk to couples about getting married. Do you have an officiant? That kind of thing. Maybe that's a little intimidating for you. You want to go just to a wedding show. I've seen this before. I've been at wedding shows where somebody's circulating and I say, oh, hello, are you a bride? No, I'm considering becoming a wedding photographer. I just thought I'd come and meet some people. So that's a kind of a low pressure way to meet vendors. But of course, I start striking it up with this photographer. And next thing you know, she's giving me her card because I asked for it. And I want to see their work and that kind of thing. So interfacing with local wedding vendors outside that coffee strategy, but also going to these shows. If you have a booth, you're meeting with couples. But I always say, don't think about this in terms of, I'm going to pay the $300 to be a vendor at a wedding show. What's my ROI going to be? That's a poor way of going about that. Wedding shows are mostly about, the huge opportunity is the other vendors that are there, all the photographers, all the DJs, so work the room a little bit. You can leave your table, walk over, you're using your judgment, obviously not when they're talking to a couple, but there are lulls. There's the before, there's the after, where you go and introduce yourself. Hey, so-and-so, I've heard a lot about you. Wow, your floristry is amazing. Wedding planners, oh my gosh, you're one of the best wedding planners in the city. I've heard about you. That kind of thing. So it's not about straight, I'm going to pay my $300. How many bookings am I going to get? This slow work of interfacing with people just pays off huge in the long run, because when somebody is thinking about referring to somebody, I think they're typically going with the people they've met first. And so you want to be one of those people. And your existing client base. As a notary, you have clients who are doing signings and things like that. One of the things about, somebody in your profession, and I know this because I know so many notaries, there are so many kind of life milestone signing moments, whether it's mortgages or legal stuff or big kids or babies or banking stuff, that when you are in a family's orbit as a wedding officiant, you will, again, likely be called on because they know you and have that pre-existing relationship with you. So as a notary, you want to broadcast, hey, you know what? I do weddings. That's where I said, put it on your website, make sure people know, put it on your card, notary and wedding officiant, that kind of thing. Once you get these 3 pipelines going, you will not be begging for work in any way. You might have too much work and you get to the point where you start having to refer out to other new wedding officiants because you can't take all the weddings that you are asked to do. Like I say, you can throttle, as we mentioned in the first section of this presentation, quick elopements or signings, move up to luxe weddings, but that would be the strategy, whereas you can grow at your own pace and be proactive. Don't sit around waiting for the phone to ring. With time, your clients will start flowing in from those 3 places and you'll be in good shape. So hopefully that concludes the presentation. You belong. It is not public speaking, it is reading, and you will get clients as you build up, but you got to, do that proactive interfacing, and it will happen. Wedding officiants, wedding vendors of all stripes would love to hear from you and spend time with you. I'm sure of it. I got a picture here. I had those other kind of stock pictures of frustrated people, but this is Landis Pettis. She is a notary in Florida. Been in the orbit of, she was trained in Unboring Wedding Academy, started out as a notary. I still remember the first email I got from her that said, hey, I'm a notary. I'm considering getting into weddings. Now you can see she has her own website, formalnotformal.com. She is killing it as a wedding officiant and a notary in Florida. And so I just wanted to put her on here as an example of kind of the star student notary who's got a full-blown notary business going. She started a few years ago, just the way we talked about, and now she's an amazing wedding officiant who's super well-known in her area. You can see how I've done this for many, many other people when you visit that link. I popped it in the chat, unboringweddingacademy.com/notary stars. So please get your questions ready as I talk about this a bit. But you can see those reviews of people who took the training, absolutely crushed it. And like I say, some one-offers who just thought they were doing this for a relative. They're like, I want to do this as a side hustle or a job now on the weekends. And of course, notaries are a part of that as well. So this was asked earlier. I have 2 courses. Unboring Wedding Academy is all about the ceremony stuff, how to crush a ceremony, whether you're a one-off first timer or a notary. This pretty much guarantees that you will be the best wedding officiant that anyone has ever seen because of the story, because of the organization. It's about 8 hours. So if you're wondering what could possibly more be said about it that you didn't say here, Mark, it's an A to Z process. I said Z because I'm Canadian, about the ceremony from start to finish. The pro side came out of the community. pretty much harassing me. I joke with them. We have live office hours once a month, and I still tease them about this, where they said, tell us how to get clients, Mark. We're acing the ceremony stuff, but what are your business secrets and how do you best do that? So I have the pro course as well, which teaches how to copyright, how to get reviews, how to get photos from photographers, all that kind of strategy about being a professional wedding officiant. So there's the link, unboringweddingacademy.com/notarystars. Today only, there's a code. You'll see a place to type a discount code, Tuesday Stars, all caps, one word, for $50 off in addition. So the Academy and Pro, this bundle, you're going to see you can buy the Academy and Pro as a bundle right there for Notary Stars. That link is always going to be there, but today you can get another $50 off as well, in addition to the half off Academy for Notary Stars. This is my way of saying thank you so much, Ronnie, for having me, and it is such an honor to talk to notaries. I absolutely love it. So thanks for making time tonight. So I'm ready to take questions now. Fire away if there's anything going on there in the chat.
Yep, you've got a couple in here. I'm going to do it in reverse a little bit. Tamara Converse from California, she's saying, so in California, she would have to go through and get her minister license before joining your course. Is that right?
So again, my course has nothing to do with the legal. So you don't have to be at all certified or legal in any way to take my course. Academy is all about teaching you how to be the best officiant. And I didn't want to limit that. That's why the Pro is a separate course. I wanted it to be right for, like I say, the dad of the bride who wants to crush it. He doesn't have any intention of being legal or anything like that. He just wants to blow people away and do well by his daughter on the wedding day. So you don't have to be legal in any sense to join Academy. I teach you my method, and the method that I teach, of course, anybody who wants to officiate a wedding, whether it's a one-off. Like I say, it usually happens where people say, I'm taking this course as a one-off for my cousin. I don't intend to do this. They absolutely crush it. They have such a great time. And then 6 people ask them at the reception to officiate their wedding. So they stumble into it by accident. Next thing they know, they're doing this as a side hustle, and maybe even sliding up to full time. But so no, you do not, there's no prerequisites to taking Academy, and I've designed it that way on purpose. Obviously, if you're going pro, and as a notary, yes, I would say go through AMM or ULC if you're not legal in your state. The second you do that, you are legal, and you can sign papers and make it legal for any couple.
I do have a question about the 2 different courses. So does Unboring Wedding Pro encompass what's also in Unboring Wedding Academy, or are they two separate
They're 2
courses?
totally separate courses. So that's why you can get a bundle where it's Academy and Pro, but they are completely separate. When you purchase the bundle, you'll see them as 2 separate courses in your platform. You'll see Academy and Pro, but there is no overlap at all. Like I said, because I wanted Academy was just for the ceremony, and it really was the community saying, you know, teach us how the best method to, you know, write copy or website questions or everything involved in being a professional wedding officiant, whether it's part-time or full-time. So it is totally separate.
2 more questions, maybe 3. Dion is asking, do you provide contract training?
Yeah, so that is in Pro. That's a great question. Again, I had to choose very carefully what I presented tonight. I wanted to give it teeth. I wanted you to feel like you had a process. I wanted you to not be scared as notaries to take on wedding officiant and start tomorrow morning if you wanted to. That's an excellent point. Do not, so do have a contract, do not officiate, do not get involved with a couple without a contract. That definitely is in the Pro course. I have a blog about that as well on my website. If you go to unboringwedding.com or even Google Unboring Wedding Contract, I have a whole article about that and even a template, because contracts are about getting expectations on the same page, right? So that's a huge part of, I don't want to get into an agreement, a relationship, a professional relationship with a couple where they think one thing is happening, I think another thing is happening. And so contracts are excellent just for straightening out, okay, as your wedding officiant, I'm responsible for this, I will deliver this on time and that, and you need to do this, you need to pay on this schedule, that kind of thing. So amazing question. Don't get involved with any officiating with a couple without a contract. And you can find that stuff online with my stuff.
And there was one more
There
question.
you go.
I lost it. I can't find it. However, its substance was, what kind of fees would you charge for a wedding? And do you have levels or tiers?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Again, that's in pro. How do you price yourself starting out? And I do have a live video on my YouTube channel that I think is still up there about how to price yourself when you're getting started. I did a live webinar and I just left it up there. I would say when you're starting out, don't undervalue yourself. There's a few reasons for that. So I'm just giving you kind of the quick hits about that full video or stuff that's in pro. You don't want to come in as a new wedding officiant and say, I'm charging $50 a pop. That is going to, first of all, make you look like an amateur, but also you're not doing well with the wedding vendor community if you're like, I'm going to undercut everybody. So there's really no reason for it. I know a lot of couples have chose me because my fee is so high. They say a wedding officiant that charges $100 must not be any good. So you have to think about that. If you think you're getting more clients because you're cheaper, it could be the opposite that's happening. So what I say is do a little bit of research when you're ready to start charging. Do some research on what officiants in your area are charging. Get an average. You're going to land on one website that's officiant charges $800, and you're going to land on another that says they charge $300. So I would say come in the low average, maybe $400. Don't undervalue yourself, and then you can slowly raise your prices as you get reviews and photos. Reviews and photos are the gold. I've referred to that a few times. The more reviews that you get and the more photos of you in action, that adds to your street cred. It makes couples want to work with you more. And so, yes, the tiering would happen, like we said, with signings. A signing is probably quick, military signing. Meet me at the Dunkin' Donuts. We'll do a quick vow in the parking lot if we have to, and off you go. Just two people. Some states you don't even need a witness. You might charge $150 for that. Basically, all you have to do is, put pants on and show up. The elopement, though, might be a little bit less work depending on the kind of ceremony you do or your policy around that. So maybe you'll say an elopement is $300, and a lux ceremony is $700. So that kind of thing. Maybe you want to think about doing elopements only Monday to Thursday because you want to keep your weekends open that's typically when big weddings happen. When I was scaling up, I kept shooting myself in the foot because I was just taking everything. And this is the moment where I remember my growing pains. I became more sought after. So I would get an inquiry from a couple for the big $800 wedding package that I was charging on my website. And it's great, I got a new potential client. And I'd look, and I had booked an elopement on the Saturday at the same time for $250. And so I started realizing, oh my gosh, I'm really hamstringing myself here. So you're going to get to this point where you have to maybe start with a strategy a little bit better than I did. Do your elopements during the week so that you can not miss out on that work, but save your weekends for bigger weddings, that kind of thing.
One thing I want to point out too, and first of all, you're an amazing presenter. So I appreciate that. We have a lot of people come to Notary Stars and present. You presented flawlessly today, but
thank you.
One thing that I want to point out to the notaries that are still watching right now and those who watch the replay is becoming a wedding officiant is not just about the money. We live a very stressful life as notaries with everything being so much pressure being on us. One thing that I do love about being a wedding officiant and having this in my back pocket is I find it to be very fun. And I have actually learned about other cultures, and I've had, really interesting situations. So I did and I want to make sure I say this right, a gay Latino wedding it was actually the building that I lived in. The one of the gentlemen that worked at the front office, they knew that I was a notary, and then they asked would you officiate our wedding? And I said yes. And I actually gave them a discount because I knew them very well, and he might have back in the day helped me get my rent check in without having to pay a $50 late fee. So I owed him one. But I had never been to a Latino wedding before, and I have to tell you, I ate the best food. I danced with people in ways that I've never knew I would be able to dance. It was so fun, and it was just so much different than what I do on the daily. Sometimes I wish I could go back and I look at that moment and I'm like, maybe I should have done that instead. But I kept on the road that I was in. But I've had a lot of fun. I've met a lot of interesting people. You hear a lot of interesting stories. And then these stories, of you learning about these people's lives, and I'm sure you have this, Mark, like they become conversational pieces when you're out at dinner later with your friends, and people are talking about things and you're like, oh my God, I have this story. And it really, becomes a part of your life as well. So if you're looking for something to fulfill you in a way, also in your career as a side hustle or whatever you choose to do this as, don't just look at it from a financial standpoint, because the reward really is the connections that you make. And it's much different than the industry we find ourselves in most of the time. So I just wanted to point that out as well as we draw to the end, because, I know that people can work their way up to, a large financial part of it, but it's not just that. It's what you get out of it as well, as a human being, as a soul, as a person, that I think is very rewarding when you are a wedding officiant.
That is the best note to end on. Absolutely. That's why I say I consider it sacred work, whether or not, some couples, they find me, they're totally non-religious or whatever. And I just say, having two people standing there promising their lives to each other, what's more sacred than that? Whatever religion you are, even if we don't necessarily invoke God because they're not religious, I just think there's nothing like that. And that is what makes that moment so deep for them. But, the serious and the moving and the sacred is not anathema to also laughing and having a great time. Those things are not oil and water. They definitely can go together, all in a wedding ceremony where you're telling the love story. People are laughing, people are crying, they're making promises to each other. It's quite a ride. And like I say, once that 10 part wedding ceremony, once you kind of master that, and 90% of your ceremonies look like that, you can just do this all the time, and people will call on you to lead them through this incredible milestone in their lives.
Awesome. Mr. Mark, if you don't mind unsharing your screen, we have a little thing that we do
Sure.
here at Notary Stars, and I'd like for everybody to turn on their camera, and let's give Mr. Mark our signature wave, because it's really important for us. He is a true guest here. He's totally
I love it.
borderline to our industry.
Oh, nice to see you all.
Everybody turn on those cameras for this guest in the house here. He's been a good
So
friend of
nice.
Notary Stars, good friend of notaries all over the country.
I'm a guy who never cries at weddings, but you're making me tear up here.
All right, guys, we have to say our signature goodbye. So if you are not naked, if you are not stuffing your face with a sandwich at the moment, turn on those cameras. Let's wave to our guests. Wave to those future notaries that'll watch that replay. Wave to those who couldn't be here and will watch it on YouTube in a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Mark, for being here. And Miss Beth, how do we say it here at Notary Stars?
Being successful does not make you great. What makes you great is reaching back and helping someone else become great. So Mark, thanks for sharing with us and helping us all to become great wedding officiants.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And everybody have a wonderful night.